Welcome to the Basic Bee podcast, a show for the wannabe SEO savvy service providers among us, for the coaches and consultants who dream of becoming known for their storytelling skills, not to mention the solopreneurs who straight up need to master all things social proof to increase sales. After a little reluctantly fully committing to this online world of business, I quickly realized I needed to get people to come to me. I needed to tell them I was here and how I could support them. I dove headfirst into social proof, which led me to SEO, which led me to storytelling. And now it gives me great joy to share what I've learned with other business owners so they skip the hard stuff and ease straight into sales. This podcast gives you expert insights, actionable takeaways, and casual convos with some of the online world's best and brightest experts and strategists. I think that's enough of an intro, so here we go. Welcome back to the Basic Bee podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend Erin Perkins, and I'm so excited because we get to talk about accessibility, and I'm going to bring in marketing into the conversation, so you'll see where we're going to go. Before I bring her on, here's a quick intro. Erin Perkins is the CEO of Mabel EQ. She's deaf-blind, but you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at her. She can still hear with the help of her hearing aid and cochlear implant, and she can only see 50 degrees. If you're waving at her and she doesn't wave back, chances are pretty high that she did not see or hear you. It was through collaborating with independent business owners, coaches, and mentors that she became aware of the limited understanding of accessibility. This realization prompted her to pivot towards accessibility education. She loves getting to teach businesses how to be accessible by leaning on her life experiences, which she shares with others to foster true inclusion at all levels. Her mission is to make the world a more accessible place, one business at a time. Erin, I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Brittany. I'm so excited to be here because I know the last podcast episode we did was great. So this one should be different and more learning and education for your audience.
Yeah, we're going to build on it. And I'll make sure to link to the last episode with you below, of course. I love all of my linking. So the first question I'm going to ask you is one that I ask everyone. So you may have heard it, but which do you believe is the most important for sales? SEO, storytelling, or social proof?
Obviously, SEO. Social proof is necessary and storytelling is necessary, but SEO ties it all together for people. So, SEO is definitely number one.
I like this answer. I approve. So let's get into accessibility. And the two things that I really want to weave in are SEO and podcasts, mostly because I just watched your podcast workshop about accessibility and it was absolutely incredible. But I would love to start with the elephant that's in the room. What does accessibility encompass?
So there's two different definitions, accessibility and then a digital accessibility. So accessibility usually applies to the product or anything that anybody should be able to use regardless of what ability they have. So say you have a couple of really good examples in real life. Everybody uses the curb cut effect. You have the curb cut, like anybody can use it. It was originally designed for people in wheelchairs, but like moms with strollers use it. People who might use a cane or a walking tool, they use that. All of that had created for a better experience. The other example is also the push button to open the door. Granted, those don't always work all the time because we know that. But it has benefited so many people beyond just people in wheelchairs. So it's one of those things where if you can create something that it doesn't matter what ability you have, if you have a broken arm, you have a sprained ankle, or you might have your hand full of kids or a grocery bag, the benefit to that. Now, digital accessibility is really about creating a good user experience for everybody who is in your audience, regardless of what ability. And when I talk about disability, I am talking about anything that relates to mobility, hearing, seeing, neurodivergent, chronic illnesses. Every one of those people should be able to have a good experience no matter what type of content they consume. And that applies to podcast, email, social media, website, branding, all of those things that I talk about.
Yeah. Thank you for going through that. And we've listed at least some of your disabilities. The only thing that I really fall into is that I do have chronic migraines, and thankfully they've gotten a little bit better, but that's something that can completely knock me out for days. And so, not everybody knows that. And those are things that we don't always think about. I have a brother-in-law who has cerebral palsy. My grandpa had a stroke before he passed away. And so he was in a wheelchair and he could only say A. So there's different things and different ways that things show up and different considerations that we need to keep in mind to, like you said, give everyone the best experience possible. So thanks for running through that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never asked you this, but I would love to know, what do you wish people understood about what it's like to navigate life as someone who is deafblind?
So for me, I don't necessarily feel like I am missing out on anything in life because I was born this way. So it's not something that I'm suffering from a loss. Granted, my vision is a little bit different because that was something that I didn't find out about until I was 21 and it's slowly deteriorating. So I do know what I'm missing out on, but I don't want people to feel sorry for me. But I do want people to have a lot more empathy because the certain things that I go through life, like traveling through an airport, it always can be kind of anxiety inducing because I walk with a mission. Like I would be like, I'm a millennial. I need to go and make sure my gate exists.
Yeah.
So we all know that. So I'm one of those people. So I'm like walking, but a lot of times because everybody's walking, I don't necessarily see people that pass me. And I run into them, then they think I'm rude, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So it's one of those things where I'm going to be getting white cane, mobility cane to kind of educate, tell people, hey, I need a little extra assistance. And that applies to being in the digital world, in social media, on websites, and branding, is podcast. I need a little extra help. I'm not asking you because I want you to do a lot more work, but we need to create a better experience for everyone. When podcasts were created, based on the radio existed first, but that was never accessible to me ever. And then podcasts exist, but because we have all these smartphones, it's I can still have access to it, but no one providing me transcripts. So it's no-win situation in a sense. I still don't have access to it. So help me have an easier time in life.
Yeah, and bring you in on the experience. I guess I'll just bring it up now. It's one of my notes that I wrote down from your presentation. One thing that you were mentioning that when you said it, of course, I was like, oh, duh, but it wasn't something that I really considered, was you were talking about really bringing the person into the experience and sharing the vibe with them, even in your transcript. And you mentioned even in some of the image alt text and things like that. And there are things that I try to do, but now that you mentioned that, that's a seed in my head that I'm like, okay, how can I be better at this? How can I do a better job of really providing that experience for someone? I don't have all of my videos up for my podcast.
Right.
It's a thing I'm going to do, but I don't have that. So people aren't able to always see. I'm going to make sure this video gets out because it's really important to me, especially for the audience that you're bringing along with you and the topic that we're talking about. So can you speak to that a little bit of just the vibe and the experience?
Yeah, so when I talk about bringing your vibe into the transcript and stuff, majority of the people, they either don't have a transcript, but if you listen to Apple Podcasts, they auto transcribe for you, but that still doesn't translate the type of energy that this podcast is going to bring you. I will say most business podcasts probably have a similar type of energy. But one of my friends, she had Laughing with Ginger. Their podcast, is about two redheads. Try to bring in that energy of what it's like to be part of that podcast without necessarily being listening to it. Can you explain what each of the women's energy is, what is constantly laughing saying like fits of laughter, like every time they just like bring something up, so like nothing ever gets said, that kind of thing. Or if you have a crime podcast and like talk about like the music that you might be playing, like that to get the podcast started, so that it can kind of help the person get the mind and head situated into that energy and kind of roll through it. It's sort of like writing a book. Not that I know anything about writing a book, but like just give a little bit so that people can kind of vibe with it.
Yeah. Is it a best practice to have a template? And, let's say we have the same intro and the same music and the same words that we're saying. Is that a good thing to templatize? And or should we tailor it for each episode intro? Does that make sense?
Yes, that
Okay.
totally makes sense. I would honestly templatize it. Like, I love templates.
Me
I
too.
love templates. I think templates are the best thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. It can still be very personalized in a sense, but your introduction with the adding the vibing can really build into that, like make it a template and it just gives people, oh yeah. And then when people start to get to know you, they might skip that part of the transcript and just go forward. And that's totally fine, but you still want it to be there and you're not having to do as much work.
Yeah. I really loved how you were bringing that up. And even in your presentation, you were talking about you've been like an OG blog reader. And I definitely started out like OG blog reader for wedding photographers. That was one thing I loved reading the love stories and how they met and all this stuff. And even thinking about that really puts you in the moment. It puts you in this headspace of, oh, this has been their experience together. And you just like get so attached to them, which is what we
Yeah.
want people to do with our podcast. So again, huge fan of templates over here. So I love hearing that we can take that, templatize the intro, and then, just comb through it and bring it more to life.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's
Yeah.
like my whole mission. Like I want to be able to have the same energy because I am not going to be listening to the podcast.
Mhm.
Just simple, true, fast. Like it's not because I don't want to hear your voice. It's because like I am protecting my mental energy and I am very sensitive to noise. So I get headaches. So reading is a lot better for me in that sense.
Yeah. I loved everything that you said in that presentation. So I'm going to keep referencing it throughout this. One thing that comes to mind for me when we're talking about this and having, edited transcripts and things like that, I immediately start panicking because I have 30 something episodes that are out. And I also just booked a ton of clients. So I know that my time is limited. It's just me. And I don't have a ton of time to go back in and edit it, but I don't want to not provide a great experience. So, what would you say to someone like me where that's my scenario, where I want to provide something, but I may not have the time to do it up like I want to?
Yeah. So, like, I am a big believer in start from where you're at now. Like, start with this episode if you have to. And then, like, down the road, if you feel like you have time, maybe say, because you develop your template for your vibe, you just, like, literally just copy and paste it and then slowly edit the other one in, like, but not to the point where you're, like, completely changing out the transcript, but just adding that in so that is set, you're good. And then making a note that like, because like you're much more aware now saying that you will like work on building it. But the reason why I said don't feel like going back to all the episodes is because what are the chances that someone is actually gonna like go back to episode number 1 and listen to everything like after you've been recording for like 6 to 9 months? Like you have to like gauge that. If someone really wants that episode and they feel like the transcript's not great, give them a place for them to reach out to you and say like, hey, the transcript not vibing with me. It's just not readable. Like I would love it if you could like update it, do that. But otherwise don't feel like you have to go back and fix everything. It's not a good use of your time.
Hey, fellow podcaster. I see you out here wanting to do more with SEO, but not even knowing where to begin or what to do. Oh, and yeah, there are loads of episodes you know you should be blogging about, but like, how? I saw so many conversations just like this happening around me, and one day I just thought, I'm a podcaster, I'm an SEO show notes writer, I should make a resource. So I did. And now you can grab the SEO podcast show note and blog post templates. You get everything you need to go from podcast idea to SEO optimized podcast show note to SEOified blog post, which means you've got 2 long-form content pieces out here marketing for you 24/7. I even included video training so you know exactly what goes where and how to incorporate SEO for your podcast ASAP. Click the link in the show notes and grab your templates today. I was just saying this on the last recording because we were talking about blogging and SEO. And that's what I said. I was like, just start here and move forward with best practices. Yeah. And I remember that from our last conversation too. That was a big point. And it really just felt like this relief of like, okay, I know what to do now. I'm just going to do my best and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, like don't feel overwhelmed with being like, oh my God, I gotta like fix everything now. I need to be perfect. You do not need to be perfect. I say progress over perfection all the time. So that's like my mission.
She really does.
Where you're at now.
It's in her email signature, which I love seeing every time I email you. I'm like, yes,
love it.
It's great. So with transcripts, just this is the last thing I'll ask you with transcripts. Timestamps, are they important?
Well, so if you are using the transcript to use it as caption, keep that. But timestamps and transcript, no. For people to read, no. Please don't. Delete them. We don't need them.
You don't want to see the numbers?
No, I don't want to see numbers.
No, this is great. That to me, hearing that, I just kept it in there because it's there. But now that I know that, that's one of the things where I'm like, okay, I don't need the timestamps in there. Let's clear those out.
I can see why people just leave them in there because that is like more editing that you need to do. But the realistic nature of things is how much time does it actually take you to edit your whole transcript? If you are already like formatting it for transcript readability, deleting that time, too bad we can't tell AI, be like, can you delete all the timestamp?
I know.
Maybe we can.
I don't know. Erin has an idea.
Let's go find out.
Erin has an idea face. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, Jasper, please delete all the timestamp from the transcript. I think that could be doable.
Maybe. We shall see. I am going to time myself and see like what the average is for how long it takes me to edit my podcast transcript because I really haven't been. I've been sharing that it's an unedited version, but it's not that hard. Like the quickest workaround that I'm thinking of, because I do everything manually because it's easier for me. It's more efficient for me. I know people love AI, but it's just not efficient for me. I have to figure out how to talk to the robot and I'd rather just do it myself right the first time. So I could just change the name and then copy that and paste it over every place where it has the timestamp. It's not going to be that hard.
Yeah.
I had one podcast guest who logged in to Riverside and he had his name as the devil, but I really wanted people to know who it was. So I had to go back through and clear all of those names and, put his name and put it over there. He was being funny and it was funny, but it wasn't helpful for anyone who was going to be reading the transcript.
Yeah. Some people don't think about that either. They're like, oh, like maybe like technically I should be putting in Erin Perkins Mabley Q so people can link the two. So I feel like 70% of the time people identify me as Mabley, even though that is not my name. I'm like, did you read my profile? But people will call me Mabley. I'm like, that's not my name, my business name, but that's okay. I'm not offended because I like Mabley Q. So
you just accidentally renamed yourself. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have nicknames, though.
There you go. You kind of do now. This is great. So with SEO accessibility, let's change gears and probably think a little bit more of blogs and SEO for our website. I like starting with this one because not everybody knows this. And we did talk about this in the last episode, but image optimization. Let's talk alt text because the last time that I had you on, and we were talking about optimizing images, and specifically with alt text. What my brain did with that information is it filed it as there's a way to do optimization for a lifestyle image, a headshot, something like that. And there's a way to optimize images that are more of like graphics and screenshots. Is there one I'm missing, or do you agree with that?
So, man, that's like a tricky question. So one of the things I've been also teaching is understanding the intention of the graphic and the photo that is in the website. Like, is it relevant to what is being said or surrounding it? Like, if it's just your website, I guarantee you, like, half the pictures are probably decorative. So you would want to mark it as decorative. But like, headshot of me would be decorative, but at the same time, like, I also want people to understand that I am showcasing who I am. I'm showing you that I'm a real human being. Now, when we go on the blog side of things, I mean, I'm a blogger, like blog reader, so I would say that, yeah, there is definitely a difference between like the lifestyle stuff versus other graphics and stuff like that, because we're in the age of information overload.
Hmm.
I don't need a description of every plate of food that you are blogging about. And you're probably writing about it in the caption. So it's definitely something that you would have to think very carefully about how you are writing your alt text, because information overload, I think that's the biggest thing right now.
That's interesting. Even information overload with optimizing things. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Because like, okay, so me and my older sister, she is an interpreter for deaf people, but she's deaf herself, so it's a weird thing. It took me a long time to understand why she was an interpreter for deaf people when she's deaf herself, but I get it now. If you want to know more, I will tell you more. But when you are an interpreter, you are interpreting the information that is necessary to relay. You are able to express the emotion or whatever through facial expression, but you are not necessarily saying everything that is being said, in the sense of you're not leaving out any information. So now when it comes to like image description, alt text, it's the same thing. Like, if you were to take a screenshot of me, you would probably just want to describe me. You're not going to go into detail and describe everything around me. You're not going to talk about the picture or the blanket, the couch, because that is not relevant. So when it comes to like lifestyle pictures or like graphics, like, you need to think about how you are putting it in, describing it so that it does rank for your SEO, but at the same time, it's not getting to the point where if the person were to listen to the alt text, it would just be irrelevant information that they're like, this does not give me any value. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And I like hearing that. So what I've tried to do since talking with you last time is when I'm doing some optimization for a headshot for me, I'm putting my name, I'm putting what I do, because I do want people to find me for that. I also want someone who's visiting the website for the first time to understand who I am and what I can do and how I can help people. And then I'm descriptive of like, what am I wearing? Or again, what's the relevant piece of information there? Am I on a client call? And that was a moment that was captured. Is it more of like a blog about, a day in the life of an SEO copywriter? And I'm talking about how I walk my dog and go to lunch and do this stuff. So I'm really thoughtful there. And when I help clients as well. And then if it's more of a screenshot, because I love using screenshots, I've gotten to be really mindful of, I usually say in the alt text, I say screenshot. And then in the caption, I'll put like ID or image description or screenshot says, and then I'll only quote the information that's really relevant. Because sometimes people write a lot.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. You need to be very curating of what you are including in a caption. Like, I don't need people to tell me that if you're saying ID for image description. You don't need to say this is an image of after, like now. Just image description, a graph that explains it, or even better, if you can incorporate it into your body text, that's even better. So it's like you have to really think about how you structure things so that you're not repeating information. Here's an example. I've gotten into fights with people about this because I'm like, excuse me, I'm the one who's going to be going blind in several years from now. So, like, I don't want, like, excessive repeated information. It's annoying. When I am doing my caption for my Instagram or social media, whatever, most of my images are graphics with text inside. The way I've set it up is, like, I will write the caption to say what is in the image. And then I will add an ID at the bottom that caption describes what's in the image. Because I do not want to repeat that information twice. People got mad at me because I didn't include the ID, and I was like, all right, fine, well, I don't want to repeat it. So that's like my workaround. I'm not repeating the information. And I think that's like where I want people to be super clear about. Don't repeat information. Try not to repeat as much as possible because that is something that I don't want. Although it's ironic because people say you need to read something 7 times before you get it. So I don't know.
No, but it is annoying in the moment. And even being someone who doesn't have those disabilities, that is still annoying. It makes me annoyed for you because efficiency is a big thing for me. And if I have to hear something 2 or 3 times in the moment, I get a little bit offended because I'm like, but I heard you the first time. I got it the first time.
Yeah.
So I could imagine me having that type of reaction, and I wouldn't want to do that to someone else. So I'm going to walk away from this conversation with, we definitely don't want to leave image titles as IMG 45321, but we also don't want to restate what the image is about like 2 or 3 times in a really short span of words.
Yeah.
Be smart, people.
Because you're just going to annoy me.
Yeah.
We don't want to annoy
We really
Erin.
don't. I want to stay on Erin's good side forever. Okay, one last question for you. Do you have any favorite accessibility tools, whether it's for podcasts or blogs?
I don't know. Otter used to be my favorite, but then they changed.
Sad Otter.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why? Why would you do that? I don't know. I've been playing around with this new platform called literally
Oh, yeah.
MMHMM. And it's really nice because, like, that was my biggest thing. I always feel like people sometimes feel disconnected from people. Like, I can record through that, and then the transcript come up right away. Like, and it's actually pretty good by my term, because usually most auto transcription tools do not translate me well. So I'm liking that, and I feel like it allows my audience to have a stronger connection to me because they're seeing me within the slide. So I really like that as well. But, like, I also don't want to add to people's tech stack. Like, because I know once you have a tech stack, you kind of want to stay with it until you find something really better to take 2 or 3 away.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Are there any SEO practices that can actually hinder website accessibility?
Not sure. What do you think?
Well, I mean, hearing the repetition piece
Yeah.
and how we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I feel like the repetition piece definitely. But, like, if you don't add transcript, you're totally missing out on the SEO aspect of that anyway. So that actually hurts your podcast in a sense. Because if you don't add transcript, that's like, because it has a lot of information and not repurposing those transcripts into other things as well. Like, hello, the transcript is a piece of jewel. Like, use it, people. I know I go
I hear
back
you,
and
Erin.
read like some of my podcasts like that I've been guest on, and I'll be like, oh, I said this. Nice. All right, let me pull that out. I don't usually repeat the same thing every time I'm a guest on a podcast.
That's interesting. I mean, that's probably smart because then you have this, wealth of information out there that you haven't repeated, that you get to use new stuff and use that to create blogs or social posts or whatever.
Yeah.
That's wise.
Although I am on hiatus from Instagram.
I don't even really know what chaos they're causing. I haven't posted on there other than stories since November of last year, and I am so happy. I love Threads. I see you on Threads. Yeah. I love Threads.
I don't feel like I'm that witty or that I have a lot to say.
Really?
Wide on Thread. I need to be provoked by people.
Okay, I'll start provoking.
Like, somebody questioned me, and I didn't understand the question, honestly. So, because I was complaining that people don't see accessibility, being an accessible business as a need or a requirement. It's optional. Accessibility is not optional. It needs to be really a core piece of your business, you're building it in. But then somebody commented and said, so doesn't it? It says so much about how becoming accessible is costly. Just another disability tax.
The vibe of that doesn't sound great. No. But the vibe seems mean.
It almost feels like they were being negative to me for complaining about it. And I'm like, and here's the piece that I want people to understand. I want every single business that listens to this podcast to understand that if you wait to build accessibility into your business, it can cost you 30 times as much if you wait to build accessibility into your business. 30 times as much rather than doing it right now when you're in the 5-6 figures business and you're on the upswing to 7-8 figures, which is what I want to see for most of us business owners. Think about how much money you would save if you just started doing it now.
So much money. And even thinking about, again, from your presentation, how podcasting really started 03, 04, and Apple just this year in 2024 came out with a transcription thing that's not perfect, but they've got it out. I didn't realize until you were saying this that they don't even identify that there's speaker 1, speaker 2. So it's just a jumbled.
Yeah, so one example I used was Ellen Cubicle to the podcast. I love her podcast. And she had always transcribed her podcast separately, and I've always read them. So I decided to challenge myself and read because my friend was like, oh, I'm so excited. I can't even understand this. My brain didn't compute it. My brain just went, what? No, I'm out. Peace. Bye. Not reading it. And I was sad because I was like, oh, this is such a great opportunity. But it's such a missed opportunity because one, you're doing this and saying, all right, we're done. We made this accessible. No, there's still so much more work to do with the auto transcription piece. Also, I feel like it's giving people a way out of saying, oh, I don't need to transcribe my podcast anymore. Apple does it for me. One, Apple not the only podcast platform. I mean, I'm an Apple person, so I will always just use Apple. But I have to recognize that my dad, who is a sole Android user in our family, he will probably listen on a completely different platform. So we have to think about that. You're already missing out on your audience if you're just saying, oh, Apple transcribed my podcast. Then the other thing is, it's not readable. It's not readable at all. I challenge you to read the transcript on Apple and see if you can actually read it.
Yeah.
And understand it.
You definitely can. I mean, even when you were doing that, I was like, wait, there's no way. This is just such a travesty. So I went over and it's just all of the words. You don't know who the speakers are. If it's a solo podcast, okay, you could probably understand that a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that's not helpful. At the very least, say speaker 1, speaker 2. If there's more than 2 people, I guess it gets a little bit confusing, but still they could identify the voices. One of the things I learned and I'm going to start implementing, and I need to figure out how to do this for myself in my podcast, but what I want to do is just put a button that says transcript that's hyperlinked in each podcast so that someone can go and click over to a Google Doc, click over to the blog, click over to something where it's going to take them to the transcript Even if it's not a perfect transcript, even if it has the timestamps, I still want them to have something.
Yeah, it got to be something. Like, if you are a podcaster, like, come to me. I will help you make it amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, give people multiple ways of how they can consume the podcast. Like, not everyone wants to listen to it. Like, even though you created the podcast because you thought it would be easy, I'm sorry, I made your life a little bit more difficult, just a little bit.
But
I want to learn from you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing. I mean, you can't if we don't give you a way to do that.
Yep, exactly.
All right. And with that, where can people come and contact you and learn from you?
Like right now, because I'm putting my Instagram on hiatus, you can still find me on Instagram at Mabley_Q. And then same for my website, mableyq.com. And you can also email me through there. My email address is on the website. So, like, there's so many different ways to work together. Like, I can, like, audit your podcast. You can take workshops from me. We can do a one-on-one. I can come into your community. So many different ways to work with me. I personally love doing workshops. They are the most fun for me.
And you are a really good presenter with workshops. I wasn't able to attend live, but I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything because you even included those of us who weren't able to make it live. You gave examples of our shows, which I was so grateful for it. I was thankful to see things because it was something I thought I had taken care of and I didn't. So I'm like, okay, I have to go in and do this blog and add these links. And so I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, I tried to think about the people that wanted to be there but couldn't make it. And I felt like I wanted them to feel like there was a lot of value in that. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So go find Erin, get in her world, get help from her, learn from her. Even if it's just like a tip or two. I mean, there's tons of things that you could choose from and start to implement.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, Brittany.
Of course. Thanks for coming back. And like I said, I'll make sure that I link the other episode too, so they can go listen to that one or read the transcript.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was really something, wasn't it? Let that really sink in and guide you toward being the answer to even more Googled questions. Thanks so much for joining me this episode. You are the reason this show exists and that it keeps growing. You know, thanks to all those follows and reviews. If you know someone who could benefit from what was shared, send it to them. We don't do shy around here. If you thought of clarifying or follow-up questions while listening, you know what to do. Say hi on Instagram. Check the show notes for all the things that were mentioned, and I'll talk to you soon, friend. Okay, you get it. You know SEO is important, but no, you're not interested in learning another skill. Who has the time? But who are you supposed to trust with the task of getting SEO to work for you? Someone who won't ghost you mid-project or treat you like a dum-dum lollipop. Someone who actually wants to empower you and your team with all things SEO. Hi, yes, it's me, Brittany, and you are the person I created the SEO packet for. You're curious, you want to understand this thing better, but like only a little bit. You don't actually want to do the doing. This way, you get the key SEO stuff super fast, and you get support throughout and beyond the project. No more letting Google gift you the wrong SEO strategy. Time to put the right words in the right places and get found online by the right people. Find all the info you need below.